This Amateur Radio Roundtable is brought to you in part by ICOM America. And good evening to all of our viewers out there. This is Tuesday, March the 21st. You're watching Amateur Radio Roundtable. I'm Tom, W5KUB, and tonight here in the studio we got Walter with us again, KJ4UCE. Did I get that right, Walter? All right. KJ4UCE is with us, and he's going to join us over here in a little while. But we got a couple segments here tonight that I think are going to be interesting to you. We've got one about a new California hands-free law. And even though it's in California, I think this is some good information that you might want to pay attention to, because it can definitely affect you, and you might learn some ways to keep some bad things from happening to you. And then a little later, we've got Ashar Farhan with us, VU2ESE, all the way from India. It's early in the morning over there. Farhan's getting up right now. He's getting all the sleepy out of his eyes. He's getting ready to be on the show, so he's getting things ready. So he'll be with us in a little while to talk about the BITX40 and also about the new micro BITX. Did I say BITX40? It's BITX40 and the micro BITX. There's another radio out there, I think, called the BITX40, if I'm not mistaken, and that's not the same radio. So let me just say again, welcome to our shortwave listeners. We're on WBCQ, world-famous international shortwave station, WBCQ, out of Monticello, Maine. We got Lord Robert up there, and he's in our chat room, and I saw everybody's been saying hello to Lord Robert. Lord Robert, we appreciate all the work you're doing up there. This is some difficult times, I know, to keep the shortwave station on, because it gets ice on the feed lines and it gets under snow, and Robert is telling us they've got over 3 feet of snow now, and it's still coming down. So keep the transmitter fired up, Lord Robert, and we really appreciate what you do for us there. We thank you. We thank Alan Wiener, the owner of WBCQ up there in Monticello. If you're listening on shortwave and you have internet available, go to w5kub.com, w5kub.com, and you can join us, and you can watch the live video, and we have a chat room that you can join, and you can see what's going on there. Join our Facebook group. This is for everybody, hams and shortwave listeners. At the top of our website, there's a link that says Facebook. And just click on that. Please join us and follow our group on Facebook. And that's where you'll find out all the postings about upcoming shows and past shows. And it's just a good ham radio place to put pictures and things and talk about ham radio. Yeah. Let me make one little quick announcement here. I've got my weekly, I got almost my daily spam call from the Microsoft Support Center today, about 3 o'clock. And, I usually keep them on about 45 minutes before I tell them, to take a long walk off a short pier. But anyway, so the guy hung up on me today. And, boy, I wish I could get the supervisor's name at the Microsoft Support Center, because they're rude to you when they hang up on you. But what happened was, about 30 minutes ago, the same 800 number called me back, and there was nobody there. So I think the new shift has come on. So during the show, if I get a phone call from the Microsoft Support Center, we're going to take that on the show tonight and see how far we can drag them on. So the show might go a little long tonight. I don't know if that call is going to come in or not, but we'll see what happens. So let's do this. Let's jump right into our show tonight, and let's go out to California, out to Campbell, California, and this is James Aspinwall, NO1PC. NO1PC, and he can tell us a story about what that means in a little while. But tonight, Jim is going to talk to us a little about this hands-free law, and if you want to know really what it is, look under his name there. It's CVC 23123.5, if you really want the technical term for this. Now, Jim got his novice license in 1970. He started out as a shortwave listener, like maybe there are a lot of people listening tonight on shortwave. He has extensive experience in PC systems. He's worked in both the medical and the scientific instrumentation areas. He's worked in broadcast and commercial and public safety, and he's also worked with the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services and much, much more. So, hey, Jim, how you doing out there tonight in, I guess it's sunny California, isn't it?
Yeah, it's partially sunny. It's very good. Good evening, Tom, and the audience. Thanks for having me on.
Well, hey, it's interesting how these time zones. It's dark here, the sun's shining there where you are. Of course, it's going to be getting dark, and we got Farhan coming on in a minute. The sun's just coming up in India. It's a small world. But let's talk about what is happening in California with this new law, how it even got where it's going, and how I guess the technical term is, they kind of screwed it up, I think, and thanks to people like you, you're going in there trying to fix it. So give us some background on it, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good. Well, last March, about the same time last March, Assembly member Bill Quirk in our District 20, which is covers the a lot of the eastern real estate, east side of San Francisco Bay, from Hayward to Fremont, introduced a bill at that time in the Assembly was AB 1785 to strengthen the existing hands-free cell phone law to preclude texting and those things you do with Waze and your Google Maps and such while driving, not just hands-free talking. And it had some very specific language about what types of devices they were trying to define and the types of operation. It must now be mounted on the dash or part of the vehicle and operated only by a touch or a swipe, which is kind of an interesting thing that a law would actually dictate mechanical human behavior in that way. But it went through six edits to its passing in September, and anybody watching the bill would have thought it was a cell phone bill. And as it came out, it looked like it was a cell phone only bill, and it was passed, signed by the governor, and took effect January 1st as California Vehicle Code 23123.5. And you'd think that would roll off my tongue better by now, because I say it enough every day. And nobody thought too much of it for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, and various ham forums, other news bits, started to reveal that law enforcement agencies were making statements that they believe this new law applied to amateur radio, or, well, not amateur radio specifically, but to two-way radio use. And they said that they would enforce it against radio use, with the expectation it's a completely hands-free law. That was rather troubling when you have law enforcement agencies, with or without attribution, coming up and giving their own interpretation, their own opinions of something that was clearly written as a cell phone bill and would apply to us. So that brought up a lot of curiosity and a little bit of research to find out where are these statements coming from. Are they official statements? Is there any weight from the Attorney General's office or anything? And the web and the state websites were basically silent on the matter. You couldn't find which CHP captain or station chief would have issued such a statement. So it became rather suspicious. And finally, in February, I decided, well, let's start a petition. Let's get some attention getting going while this develops, get a head start on this, and see if we can get somebody in the know, get some support, and start to investigate this process. And along about that time, about the first week or so into the Change.org petition that I started, a local ham involved in public safety volunteering revealed that indeed he got a ticket for under this law for using his radio driving through one of the local towns. Unfortunately, he didn't want to come forward and show us a citation, but it's kind of cause for alarm when your local, the people you work with locally are starting to write you up. So as that started to get some traction and attention, I was joined by a good friend of mine, Norm Lucas, WB6 RVR, and another associate who's familiar with law enforcement, Glenn Pitts, K6 KJQ, and we began to pool resources, information sources to figure out how laws work in this state, who's responsible for it, how you get them changed, and still keep up the support and information, modifying the petition and what we knew as we learned it. And what we've learned along the way so far is that, well, a strange quirk, and that's odd because we don't want to call attention to use that against Assemblyman quirk, but a strange unintended consequence or circumstance of making laws in California is what we fondly call here gut and replace. A bill can start as a placeholder bill under some guise for farming or road repair or something else, and by the time it gets to assembly vote with dry ink, it can be something completely different than what you thought you saw in review, right up to the time of vote. And to curb that, along with this law, came along a law that says laws to be voted on must be frozen and posted 3 days before there's a vote to allow time for public comment and protest of that, which is only fair. Had we had that situation in this case, I'm not sure it would have helped, depending on how you read the language of the law. Chris Imlay of the ARRL reads the law very much with the loopholes that we do, and has issued an opinion about it. So as you go through these information gathering processes, you'll learn a lot about how things work. So we said, well, how do we get this changed? Just throwing up a petition online is not going to help. We need to talk to the assemblyman, find an assemblyman who's willing to work with us on the bill. And so I called the assembly office, as just about every other ham in the state apparently, and announced who I was. And they said, "Oh, you're the guy." And I
You're
go,
the troublemaker.
"Well, yeah, why?" So they knew who I was, or at least they knew somebody was behind all the phone calls they were getting. And so we had a short discussion about. They were emphatic that the assemblyman really intended this to be a cell phone only bill. He didn't foresee any unintended consequences. He doesn't see how we could read it as applying to two-way radio. But we left it cordial. I said, well, we'd like to follow up and have more discussion about this. And she said, well, you might also want to talk to our law enforcement advocate, a representative from the California Police Chiefs Association. So I talked to that gentleman for a good half hour, and he came up with two or three compelling questions. Number one was, where were you guys and where was PG&E and all the other large utilities when this bill was being written and following it through? Why didn't you guys weigh in before it became law? And we said, well, everybody in their right mind looks at it sort of that it's a cell phone only bill, and your own representative says it is. I said, oh, how do you feel about it? He said, well, based on national initiatives for hands-free and safe driving, law enforcement seems to be behind restricting any driving distractions. So I said, well, there you got the guy who says I meant the bill to mean one thing, and you're telling me you wanted language in there that meant another. So how do we fix this? And so he said, well, we have to have a discussion about language. We have to see who else weighs in as stakeholders in this, whether it be a large utility or other commercial folks. One of the questions I was pressed with was, so what's so special about ham radio use, and why do you need to do this recreational activity while you're driving? And I said, well, that's a good question. We'll formulate some answers and get back to you on that. But I said it's a matter of exigent circumstances of infrastructure, and there's a lot of activity that happens before your eyes while you're mobile that are not conducive to pulling over and dialing up your radio on the side of the road. Sometimes that's not safe or prudent. So following on that, we learned that there are probably 3 or 4 ways a law can get changed. One is to introduce a completely new bill for the calendar year. The other is most of the assembly has what they call spot bills or placeholder bills that allude to one thing or are very basic in their format and allow for other items to come onto the bill as they evolve. So the spot bill is one thing that is in the current calendar year and we could work with. Starting out with an entirely new bill at this point would take fully 2 years to evolve and become law, which is way too long. The third circumstance is to petition the assemblyman from his voting district to open the bill under what's called an urgency clause, that the public feels that the consequences of the law deserve more immediate attention than an end of session, end of year bill.
So, Jim, let me ask the question. When this thing was being prepared and thought up, did the ARL have any involvement? Was there any input at all about ham radio, or was that just completely forgotten about?
Well, we didn't learn that there were any stakeholders, based on the fact that they said none of you radio people came forward while we were doing this. Is a pretty good indicator that no one in either grassroots like us or the ARL was dealing with it or interacting. They weren't a stakeholder. They were not a participant in the bill. We have since learned last week that the ARL Southwestern Division has engaged. They had a meeting with the assemblyman and provided some highlights, which the next day the assemblyman's office sent us a summary of some of that discussion and what their alternatives, what their course of action is. So no, basically nobody was paying attention to this last year and foresaw any of that, what I'll call a loophole language, but the big gaping hole of unintended consequences in this, nor that various law enforcement agencies would have their own independent evaluation of this. We now know one of our takeaways is to be ever vigilant about anything that involves electronics, communications, wireless. We all have keyword searches now built up. We now know where to look in the assembly calendar for bills that are coming up, and we have a tag on an alert tag on one of the bills. And we'll cover a little bit of that in a bit. Is one of the remediations. So as this evolved and we got their attention, we got their questions, and started to look. One of the discussions with them was about, what are you looking for? And I said, well, if you tell me it's a cell phone bill, let's clean up the language that it's specific to the type of device, and no language that is and other devices as to be determined. That you can't leave anything that open in a legal situation, because it's just going to be fraught with problems of interpretation by law enforcement officers, by lawyers, the courts. When you get a ticket for this, which way is that going to go? So clean up the ambiguity of the language is what we wanted. He said, so you're not looking for an exclusion or an exemption specifically for your hobby? And I said, no, because there are many other people in the radio service, from businesses to CBers and truckers. I belong to a recreational vehicle group that uses CB or FRS as part of their caravan communications en route for directions and safety and things like that. You can't have a 15 or 20 person conference call on your cell phone while you're navigating a motorhome. Most people, in your non-cellular areas, that kind of classic conference calling doesn't exist otherwise in a mobile environment except by radio. And I told him that this is something we've been doing for 70 years. There's no causal evidence, there's no safety studies like there are for cell phones that even indicate that what we do has ever been a threat or a concern to public safety. And that brings us to the fourth possible solution, which is kind of brute force, is to take this case before a judge and find the law unconstitutional, because a law, and there are other laws that this has happened to, that if there are no findings, if there's no causal evidence that an activity you're prohibiting has ever been an issue, or that you're going to solve a problem by creating a law about something, then it's unconstitutional. So I've got that's kind of a distant target of finding somebody who will raise that motion before a federal judge, and it's kind of severe. It would be a pretty big slap to the assemblyman.
So are they enforcing this law right now without these changes?
We have not heard of anyone step forward again, and I've put out a query, and certainly all the social media may help. Is anybody who's been cited for under this law, not for cell phones, but we want to find somebody who would have gotten a ticket for this, and clearly indicating on the ticket that it was for radio use, not your conventional cell phone. And watching how citation is written is going to be kind of tricky.
Well, I read this California code 23123.5, and man, you can interpret that a lot of ways. The way I saw it too, to operate a radio, possibly you had to be in a marked government car, I believe. Therefore, an unmarked police car couldn't even use the radio actually without breaking this law. I mean, it could be interpreted that way.
That's come up in a lot of discussions. Is to what exactly that means. Now, some law enforcement may recognize their unmarked cars of their friends and neighbors, and some might not.
I guess they could put a little bitty mark on it, that nobody could see. Like take a little marking pen and by the tail light, just put a little initial there. PD, police department, and then they could say it was marked.
Yeah. Yeah, there've been all kinds of anecdotes coming up. Of course, a lot of reactions from our community that we serve our sheriff's department. We're part of Aries. We're part of RACES, and all of that well-deserved emotion has built up. But I held fast with them that no, we don't want a specific exclusion. There are of 7 states I know that have an exclusion for radio use. Only 1 or 2 have specific language in there that talks about ham radio or amateur radio. And the caution about doing an exclusion for just one affinity group like us is that you leave out the cab drivers, the school bus drivers, the Teamsters, the construction folks, and the major utilities have large fleets of communications systems going around. So we want to be very careful because if you put in one exclusion, next week some other affinity group is going to come to the legislature and say, hey, well, we want an exclusion too, and you never dry the ink on the bill.
So Jim, what's next, and what kind of time frames do you think it's going to take to fix this?
What's next is the word we got from the Assemblyman's office was they are seeking an opinion on enforcement, and that's not an official word, but they're seeking an opinion or an interpretation from the California Highway Patrol as the lead law enforcement agency in the state, very specifically indicating that this does not impact two-way radio use, and it's not their intent to cite for it. So that's one level of opinion that does not materially change the law. Therein lies one of the risks of an opinion about this, as well as there's a legislative journal that the Assemblyman will enter and express his very specific intents. But neither of those opinions materially change the law. If a sheriff or a police department in an outlying county does not get the memo, and they believe that they should be enforcing the law, there's still some culpability. The burden of proof and all the trouble of this, the fines, the court issues, and all that are still on the citizen. So the opinion doesn't take anything off the citizen at all, and in fact, it probably makes it a little more complex, because if you're an aware citizen and you meet an unaware law enforcement officer, then you may have this contention in the field, which is never good when somebody's got the ticket book out. That's one thing. That's a good step of progress, and it may or may not carry enough weight to relieve everybody. We'll look forward to that. We'll see what it does. They do have a spot bill or a placeholder bill that related to driving and transportation that they will start to fill in with new language. And we have sent not only a marked up copy of the present bill and where we find and highlighted where we find the language inconsistent and troublesome, and corrective language. I do a little bit of technical writing. I can get deep technical concepts down to the average consumer pretty easily. So I figured this is a good chance if I can do it for a politician, as well as added a paragraph of exclusion, again not specific to amateur radio, but the type of equipment that's involved that is not immersive, and trying to try to even manufacture a legal description of a radio in your car is kind of a fun exercise. But they have language from us, presumably from the ARRL, probably Imlay's letter, at least giving them the idea that we are contributing, we want to see this change, we want to help. What kind of timeline? We really can't say, and neither can they, when CHP is going to issue their letter, when the Legislative Journal is going to get updated. If it's a spot bill that they're working on, unless something changes in the Assembly, they won't vote on it until September for effective January 1st, 2018.
Well, it's good for people to know about this, because this is the type of things that happen in every state. And I've been looking at the chat room, and several other states have also done something similar to this. And you guys should be commended for jumping in here and trying to get this thing fixed, kind of in the beginning stage, because you let this bill sit around 5 or 6 or 7 years, and all the people that made this law get voted out of office, but the law is still there, and it becomes much more difficult to change it. So while it's fresh in everybody's mind, and it sounds like you've got people that wrote the bill really didn't intend it to be as widespread as some others are interpreting it. I think it's good that you guys have made that contact, and hopefully you'll come out with something good there.
Right.
Okay. Hey, talk to me a minute about your station here. You got a nice looking station behind you.
Well, this shot looks pretty good, but the rest of it's a mess. This is my rec room, PC lab, ham shack combination. I work from home, so I've got pleasure on one side, and I got work computers over on the other. I think I sent you a bigger picture of the whole thing. My feature trophy piece is a Flex 3000. I'm hoping to eventually upgrade it to a 6300. I love this radio. It lets you see things that you've been hearing on the air for so long, and completes the mental picture of what's happening on the air. There's a small antenna farm outside with a couple of dipoles and a TA-36 on top of the tower. And the whole station operation, except for the rotor controller, and I'm going to work on that, is all fired by 12 volts, so I'm fully battery backed up, including the sundry public safety radios, and there's a UHF repeater with an All-Star link in the garage running off the whole system too.
Cool. Hey, you do so many other things. I see the little tag up there says fire department. You're also have been on the fire department here, right?
I started out in Texas when I lived in west side of Houston. I was looking for an Aries races kind of thing to do for to give back to the community, and a couple of my ham buddies said, well, we're on the fire department, and I know they need somebody to help fix their radio pagers. Why don't you come on down and meet the radio guy and talk to the chief, and we'll get you hooked up. So I went down one night, met everybody. They said, well, you've got the experience, you've got the equipment. Well, let's sign you up to work on the radios. The chief signed me off, and he said, well, go down to the supply cabinet, the supply closet downstairs, and see the lieutenant, and get your stuff. I said, great. I'm going downstairs. I'm going to get a box of pagers. I'll go home and tinker and do good for the public. And I walk up to the door, and the lieutenant says, what's your size? And I said, I'm just here for radios. What do you mean my size? He said, no, you got a letter from the chief here. You're on the department. Boots, hat,
cool.
Coat size.
Yeah.
And I was handed bunker gear, and he says, where do you live? And I said, I'm out over here. And he says, okay, you're on truck 25. It's outside that door. Go meet your captain. And I dove into 8 years as a volunteer firefighter in Texas, which is one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. Well, hey, Jim, thanks very much for coming on tonight and talking about this bill. and what it means to ham radio. And when you do get some more updates, we'll have you back on and let you, fill us in again and tell us what progress you're making or what progress you're not making. But it sounds like you guys are on top of it.
Well, we're trying to be. We're always reaching out to the ARRL to make sure that we're with one voice in this. I think out of this, it comes a huge civic lesson in how to deal with these kinds of issues and what to look out for. So there will be some leave behind, but be vigilant of your state legislature and look for these key words of things. Work with ARRL and see what experience there is there. There aren't many places with hands-free laws that would be impacted yet. Oregon is just starting up one, but everybody says, well, as goes California, so goes the nation, and we certainly don't want to see another 45 states have to deal with this fight over and over again. If we can provide a little object lesson about it and help them through it. So thank you very much for the time.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, and hey, maybe we'll see you. Just let everybody know you're a regular in our hangout toward the end of the show. That's where we all sit back around the coffee table and talk about anything. So if anyone wants to join us at the end of the show tonight on Hangout, we'll publish the link you can click on. It brings you right into the show. And Jim, if you're there, if there are more questions, we can address them during the Hangout. But thank you very much. Thank you very much, and maybe we'll see you a little later.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
All right,
Thanks, everybody.
You. Bye-bye. Okay. That was Jim Aspinwall, NO1PC. Boy, that call looks funny. NO1PC. He's works in a PC business, so I think there was a little story around that, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it tonight. Just got a message from Farhan. Farhan is going to be with us. He's running just a few minutes late, so this is the exciting part of the show coming up. We're going to have Farhan, Ashar Farhan VU2ESE is going to be with us again in just maybe about 10 minutes or so, and we're going to talk about not only the BITX 40, but the new radio he has designed to come out with, the Micro BITX, which is an 80 through 10 meter CW sideband 20 watt radio, and it's probably going to come in at under $100. And most of you guys that have been following us with the BITX 40, you know exactly what we're talking about. This thing can be modified so many ways and so many add-ons to it. So I tell you what we're going to do for right now. We're going to go ahead and jump into shack pictures. Let me throw the shack pictures out real quick while we're waiting on Farhan, and let's see if we can do that. So here we go. Hey, this first picture here is from Greg Pilgrim, KA0RSN, in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. And hey, it's kind of a nice station there. He said his wife told him to clean his desk up, but I think he went ahead and took the picture. You better listen to her. He's got an IC7300 there and an IC2300H. Says he's getting a little ID, I think it's an ID5 ready for QRP and camping. So I'm not sure what that is, but obviously Greg does some camping there and runs QRP. The next one we've got is from Richard Naylor, K5 LRS in Fayetteville, Arkansas. That's over in the northwest corner of Arkansas. I went to college over in Russellville, Arkansas. It's kind of in the northwest over there. Fayetteville's another big college city up there. And let's see what Richard's got there. He's got a cubic Astro with a power supply. Some of these things I'm not sure what they are, but that's a cubic Astro there. He's got a Kenwood TM V7 dual bander. He's got an IC756 Pro, Heathkit SA2060 2000 watt tuner. I think up here on the top shelf, top right up here, he's got a Kenwood station monitor. He's got an FT950 HF for HF and a Yaesu FT1000 MP. And I see an Ameritron AL811 amplifier there on the bottom right. So that's Richard Naylor, K5 LRS in Fayetteville, Arkansas. This is pretty clean right here, guys. This is kind of neat. This is from Michael Rose. He's in the chat room tonight, so everybody say hello to Michael, KM4WFW from Madisonville, Tennessee. Now, I don't know. Do you know, Walter, do you know where Madisonville, Tennessee is?
Not exactly.
We don't know where Madisonville is. So, Walter, tell us in the chat room here so we don't have to look it up, but we'll find out. But Michael had just built this desk. That's a nice-looking desk. To set his station up on. I think he said he's been a general for 6 months.
It's way too clean.
Isn't it? Walter says it's way too clean. I wish mine looked a little more like that. But he's had his license for 6 months. He says he's getting ready. He knows the sunspot cycle is not great now, but he's getting ready for the future and is going to be working a lot of stations. He's got an ICOM 7300 there, an MFJ 993B tuner. Now, I don't know what an RCI is, but it's a 10 and a 12 meter radio. He's got a TYT 990 DMR HT there. And he said a couple Texas Star amps for 10 meters. So that is, that's what Michael's new station looks like there in Madisonville, Tennessee. All right, so we'll have Farhan on here in just a minute. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and run a little video that Farhan put together. It's about 5 minutes long. That'll give him a little bit more time to come on, and that way we can go ahead and get the segment running and not miss a lot of time. So we're going to watch a little segment on his new micro BITX. Again, this is a 80 through 10 meter, 20 watt radio, single sideband CW. It's got the digital VFO and readout in it. Let's see, what else does he have in here? I forget what else he has. Maybe he'll explain it in the video. So we're going to run that, and we'll be right back with you.
Hi, this is the micro BITX, and I'm going to explain to you how this works. You can see that it's a fairly small and compact transceiver. It's just about 6 inches across and 6 inches deep. Fairly small and compact radio. And the front panel is pretty short and sweet. There are just 3 connectors here for the mic, key, and the ear jack. There's a volume control, and there is a function button. We'll come to the function button in a little bit. I'll show you how the function button works. So let's switch on this set and see how it works. The software on the Arduino is still under development as I'm shooting this. So some things may not work properly. For instance, the power meter here or the S meter here is still not completely functional, but that's okay. It's about 10:30 p.m. in the night. There is some DX coming through, but the conditions are pretty bad today. So now, as you can see, that as I'm turning my dial across, this entire rotation covers about 50 kilohertz. And when I move this to the very end, the frequency will start scanning down. There, you see that? And when I've come to the frequency of interest to me, I can push back again and it stays there. And to go forward and higher in the frequencies, I'll just turn it completely clockwise, and now you can see it go up. So that's how you can start scanning the band itself. Once you get used to it, it's a pretty neat way of tuning the radio. Let's see if there's any interesting station here. I thought I heard something here. So that's as far as tuning within the band is concerned, but when you need to change the band, all you do is you hold this button down and then you move this knob. So I'm going to push this button down, and now you see that this display is moving pretty fast, and I can now go to whichever band I want to and leave it there, and then I can start tuning in from there. So that's how I change the bands. There is no concept of a band, but there is, like the old times, there's a band spread and a band set here. So that's pretty much it as far as tuning is concerned. Let me just go back to our 7 megahertz. There are a couple of other things which I need to show you. Okay, let me just go a little further down here. Okay, let's see if there's any CW here. It's a pretty chirpy signal there, very weak though. And when you need to transmit the CW, there is no mode. You just hold your key and start transmitting. So that's how you do CW. And then when you need to do SSB, all you need to do is move to the SSB band. Let me just move to the India's SSB segment, and then all you do is press the PTT and start talking. That's all there is to it. There's nothing more to it. You'll also realize that when we change from 7 to, let's say, 14 megahertz, it automatically changes to USB here. And when you go back to less than 10 megahertz, it comes back to LSB. So you don't really have to bother about these settings. You always know that the transceiver is going to make intelligent default options for you. Now, in order to turn the RIT and swap the VFOs, etc., all you need to do is again push the same button, and you fall into the menus. So that you have various menus which says, set the USB carrier, LSB carrier, calibration, or you could swap from VFO B to A and A to B, or turn the RIT off. It's right now off. You can turn it on or again turn it off again, and you can also exit the menu. So that's how it works. And at times when you have to confirm some setting, the confirm button is actually on the PTT, so you'll have to press the PTT to set and save some settings, for example like the calibration or the USB or the LSB carrier settings. So that's just about how the radio works. It's a fairly simple to use radio, and it's fairly minimal in its design interface itself. Thank you so much.
That was a really neat video. You can see all the neat functions that Farhan has put into it. Nice thing about it is it's open source on that Arduino, and you can put anything in there you want to. You make it do anything. You can add all sorts of things to it, and that's the fun about that radio, and especially the BITX 40 that we started building here real soon. Let me make a couple announcements here while we're still waiting on Farhan. We're kind of mid-show right now, so we want to welcome any listeners that tuned in on shortwave on 5130 kilohertz on WBCQ, famous WBCQ shortwave radio station up in Monticello, Maine. We appreciate all they do for us up there, and we're hoping that shortwave listeners are tuning us in on Tuesday nights. And if you are on shortwave and listening and you've got a computer nearby, go to w5kub.com, w5kub.com, and you can join the show. You can watch the video, join in the chat room. Click on the Facebook link at the top of the page. We're asking everyone to do that. Hams and shortwave listeners, please join our Facebook group. Trying to think if there are any other announcements. Hey, we've got Hamventure coming up soon in Dayton, Ohio. We've got space. We're going to be in space in Building 5. We're going to be in space 5006, right there by the door. That's the same building that Bob Heil's going to be in. He's going to have Heil Sound over in the top right corner of the building there. And you can see we're working hard on the layout of our booth right there. It's going to be a little crowded, but we're going to make it. And we're going to get there. So if you want to make it to Hamvention, it's May the 19th through the 21st. So come on up here. My understanding is it's a sellout of both inside and outside vendors. And they're thinking about putting in more tents to allow more people to be there. All right, well, Farhan will be in here in just a minute. In the meantime, let me take a quick break. I'll be right back with you. Spring forward. Time to put away those winter boots and spring forward with ICOM. Base stations, multiple transceivers, handhelds, and more. ICOM has all the equipment to help make your spring full of adventure. Get out and get mobile with ICOM. Communicate with the touch of your fingertips. Perfect for small spaces, the IC7100 base station is the ideal D-Star option to help those communicate anywhere. It has angled control head and touchscreen for quick, intuitive operation. A large internal speaker for clear digital audio. It's perfect for multiband and all-mode communications. Do you have spring travel plans this year? Back for a limited time, the IC7200 is a great option for hams wanting a device to carry out into the field. Simple and tough with IF-DSP, digital noise reduction, and a USB port for PC control. Ideal for the ham on the go, try this IC7300. It's a high-performance, innovative HF transceiver with compact design. RF direct sampling, 15 discrete bandpass filters, a large 4.3-inch color touchscreen, real-time spectrum scope, and an SD memory card slot. Visit www.icomamerica.com/amateur for more information on ICOM radios. All right, and we're back with you. Boy, I'll tell you, this time last week, we had some bad weather. Here's a clip right here, a segment of last week's show right here for you guys that didn't tune in last week. That's what it was last week. The weather around here changes pretty drastically. That was last week. And then, of course, if you look out the window today, this is what it looks like today if you look out the window. So it's turned off pretty nice, I would say. And, we're kind of enjoying it. I'll give you a little bit more information on Farhan here. Farhan has a website called hfsigs.com, and HF Signals was founded by Ashar Farhan VU2ESE to encourage people all over the world to get more active in amateur radio and analog electronics and to learn more, do some self-learning. In building and modifying radios, and that's a great way to get an education there. A lot of places there's a lack of access to Elmers and radio builders communities, and you don't have the test equipment you need, and all of that impedes the spread of home brewing. And Farhan really is the master of home brewing, both amateur sideband equipment and test equipment. He's got a lot of test equipment that he has homebrew. We'll show you some of that in a little while. But with the BITX 40 that Farhan put together and designed, it's turned out to be a great radio that's going to encourage more and more people to get on the air and modify it, experiment with it, and to build and learn. You can do a lot of things with that radio. It was made to be hackable, and there's a lot of things. And if you guys have been following us over the last few months, you remember when I started the BITX 40 back months ago, Ron, PA3 FAT, jumped in there with me, and he helped me. Ron was working on the software for me because I'm not very good on the Arduino software. Ron did not have his kit yet, so I had a kit, and I was testing and installing software and hardware designs and testing that. And Ron and I would meet every day on here, and we would go through loading the software and testing things and see how it would work. So one of the first things we did, we've got one of the original BITX 40s that did not come with the digital VFO, the Arduino VFO. It had an analog VFO, and it drifted really, really bad. So the first thing we wanted to do was stabilize that, and we built the Arduino DDS VFO, and we used that SI5351 board. That's about $9, and it made a rock solid, stable VFO for that BITX 40, and nice digital readout, and it was just great. And then we decided, okay, on the display we've got, let's add an S meter. And see, here's the fun part about it: you can do anything you want to with this radio. So Ron built an S meter. Actually he didn't build it. He put in the software, in the Arduino software. He put in there S meter code that basically would read a voltage from 0 to 5 volts. And I built up a little. First of all, we tried taking the signal off the BITX, and it was not strong enough to drive Ron's S meter. So I built up a little one transistor amplifier to amplify the S meter signal, and that drove the S meter. And now on the display, you not only have a frequency readout, but you had the S meter also on there. Here's a radio that was built by one of our viewers. This is Andres Ortez, EA7HQL. You can see he's using, I think, the code that Ron put together and the S meter that I worked on. So you can see he's got an S meter there. It's reading 1 scale right now. But he also on this one has added a voltmeter to read his battery voltage, and this radio runs on approximately 12, 13 volts, and it's a QRP rig. Now another thing that Andres has done in here, he's actually built in to the software here a CW decoder, so he can actually read CW, I think, on that display right there. Now all this code is open source, and it's available for anybody that wants it, and all you got to do is just load it into your Arduino device with a USB cable, and you benefit from all the experimentation that everybody else has already done. Andres did a great job putting this together here. Let me get Farhan on here. I think Farhan is available now. Let's see if we can get him in here. There he is. Hey, Farhan, how you doing, man?
Hi, Tom. All
right,
good.
welcome.
And
welcome. Hey,
sorry to be late. I had some connectivity issues. I hope stuff is working better now. Though I can't see your video. I don't
Not a problem.
know.
Let me adjust your picture a little bit here and get you in here all lined up. Cool. Let's see. Okay. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to move. I've got your name in white, and you've got on a white shirt. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to move. That's okay. I'm going to move your name. I'm going to move your name up here beside you. I'm going to move your name kind of like that right there. Does that look okay?
I'm unable to actually see anything at all
Oh, you're
on my
you're not
video.
seeing this. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And
That's perfectly fine. I mean,
but that's okay. We're seeing you fine. Your signal looks good. Well, Farhan, really appreciate you coming on. I went ahead and started talking about you. I gave a little introduction about you and about hfsigs.com.
Okay.
and how you started this product to help people learn about self-learning and learn about get more active in ham radio and all those things. And I was explaining that, and I ran your video. Let me show you. You remember? Let's see. You remember this video here, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're not seeing it. I'm sorry, you're not seeing it. So anyway, I ran your video there that shows a demonstration of your micro BITX there.
BITX. Okay.
And since you're not seeing our picture, and I'm not sure why you're not seeing it, but that's okay.
That's perfectly fine.
I had another picture here, Andre's EA7HQL. I'm showing that picture now. It's a beautiful BIX 40 that he built, the DDS. And he, this is the original BIX 40, and he put the Arduino DDS 5135 chip in there, and I think he used the code for the S meter that we put together, and he's also got voltage on there, and he's also built into it a CW decoder, so he can actually decode it. So I was telling people
something very interesting. Yeah,
I was telling people that this thing is unlimited. All the hacks you can do, all the things you can do to it. I mean, it's just amazing. And you brought the BITX 40 in so inexpensive, and it's a really solid radio. And let me ask you a question. People have been asking me this. Do you have any idea? I mean, this thing has become very popular. Do you have any idea how many of the BITX 40s you've basically sold over the last years?
Well, BITX is hardly even a year old. It's about maybe 6 months old now. We started. This really was not supposed to be a big seller at all. And if you see the name of a company that sells it, it will tell you all. It's called Paradigm Ecom, which has really little to do with radios.
Yeah.
So essentially, what had happened was that there's an annual Hamfest in India. It's just called Hamfest India, and in that we had decided to toss BITX PCBs, just free PCBs. So we gave out about 2,000 of those PCBs, but we realized that very few people actually managed to assemble and come on air with those PCBs. So what I thought is that maybe I could, get some of them assembled once. So we got about a batch of 50 of those PCBs assembled. And there were some problems in it. I said, okay, let me go back and do another 100. Where we do fulfill it. We don't know these people personally that you're shipping to. So there was a company which we had floated to do some, an e-com startup. We said, okay, they've got all the, registration all done. So let's, send this out through them. Then the production hassle started happening and all that. But really the big thing which happened was at some point in time, we decided that we must go to surface mounted devices in order to avoid the mistake happening in these things being put in. I mean, everything was being done like in an evolutionary manner, including, ask them if they'd like to, do this stuff, training them to make the toroid coils, etc., etc. So, I mean, that all is well known. So, it's only after months that we actually started shipping it. And now there will be about probably 300 of these BITX 40s, which all will be shipped. I mean, the serial number says it all, right? There is a serial number which gives you the batch, because we get the PCB, the blank manufacturer.
Farhan, can you hear me okay, Farhan? Yeah. Let's do this. If you would, just stop your video for a second. I've got a still picture of you that looks almost exactly like your video right now. So I'm gonna put a still picture up of you. Your audio was just breaking up just a little bit. So let's try to do that. And there we go. And let's see. I've got a picture here somewhere of you. I'm gonna put that on. There we go. Okay, looks just like you. So you were talking about you started basically assembling the boards because people were not putting the boards together, right?
Right, right. Tom, if you just give me a minute, I'll change my access point so that you know
Okay.
I just installed a new access point yesterday in my shack for today's show. So let me just try switching to that. If you just
Okay,
hang on
sure,
for a second.
sure.
It's all right.
All right, we're reconnecting with Farhan. Sounds like we're in a submarine. I think we've got a connection, maybe. Let's see. Well, we had a connection, and then it hung up on us. Let me try to call Farhan. All right, let's see if this will work better.
Okay.
All right. All right.
Can you hear me properly now?
I can hear you,
Is the
yes.
video any better?
I hear you very well right now.
Okay, fine.
So we were talking about you built this board and you gave away a bunch of boards, but there wasn't a lot of success in people building it. And I can kind of understand that. I mean, especially if they wanted to use those small parts. Those are little bitty parts, man. But you guys made it so neat by packaging all those parts up. You actually sold the parts cheaper than I think anybody could buy the parts for anyway.
Well, you know, the problem with SMD parts is that you have to buy them in bulk. And I was actually not too confident about SMD myself. In fact, you know, about last year, I mean, as late as last year, or maybe no, 2 years ago, on BITX 20 itself, I asked around for people to show me a video of how to assemble, you know, solder an SMD resistor. And I'm not sure who it was, but, you know, one of the regulars on the BITX 20 mailing list actually, you know, did a video and posted it and saying, you know, this is how you actually solder an SMD. There really wasn't much to it, but I was not confident at all. But you know, since I switched to homebrewing with SMDs as often as I can, it's actually been very pleasant to do it with these parts, and we are able to get them pretty cheap now. I mean, you know, the through-hole components are increasing in price and the assembly components are falling down, but you have to buy them in bulk. So that was the main issue with, you know, the earlier kits, that we were using through-hole components. They were expensive and we were making a lot of mistakes there in terms of, you know, the values of the components getting swapped, or the, you know, the transistors being switched around, etc. But once we started doing SMD with what's called a yield ratio, and the production came up. By the way, I mean, I've never ever in my life organized a production line or, you know, done any of this stuff. So it's actually very exciting for me to, you know, get that entire thing going with a, you know, completely unrelated bunch of people working. I mean, there are these 3 women sitting in one corner of the city doing the coils. There's somebody else, actually she sits where I sit to test out the boards. In fact, probably I can show you the boards here.
Yeah, you know, someone was asking.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, someone was asking today.
You can see these boards here. Yeah,
Oh,
these
yeah.
are the boards which will go out for shipping today. So that's our entire, you know, lineup of boards which is there. And these are the digital ones which will be tested today. She might be here while who does the testing of the boards. See some of that stuff.
A lot of boards. So someone was asking today, they said it'd be nice to see a picture of your assembly plant, but my understanding is that, you know, you have different people assembling different pieces of this, and a lot of the women that need jobs, you've really given them a good job now for them to have something good to do, right?
Well, you know, there are actually two kinds of women who work here. One, for example, like Uma, she's a fascinating story in, you know, courage and, you know, grit to get somewhere. So she's a single mom, and she had to single-handedly raise her family, including her own siblings. So she dropped out of school, actually, not even college, long time ago. And she had to start earning, so she became an assembly line worker in a local firm here. And then once these kids grew up and moved on and, you know, got a little settled in life, then she stopped working, but, you know, she was sitting at home and saying, I need to do something with my free time. And, you know, the only thing that she could do was, you know, do a little bit of basic electronics. So then, you know, I knew her for a long time. So she has come in here to do all the testing. So she does the testing, you know, we've got all the procedures done of, you know, how to test stuff. Probably, I don't know whether this is the one.
So you test all the boards. You test all the boards for receive.
A test log of stuff to do.
You say you test them for receive and RF power output, right? Right there where you are.
Yeah. Well, what we do is I mean, here we only do go-no-go testing. We do not try repairing the boards here. Okay, so there's a test jig which I'll show you probably. I don't know if I can pull this out from here. Okay, so that's our test jig, and we plug the board into this, and you know, plug all the
connectors together.
Yeah, plug in all the connectors together. Then we have it's connected to a dummy load. Let me just show you this if I can. That's our dummy load. It's actually fairly powerful. It can take about 100 watts onto the oscilloscope. So then we have a two-tone audio generator. It's a little far away. We push the two-tone audio generator into this so that we can get the beautiful, you know, SSB two-tone waveform, and then we set the bias, etc., for the TX. Actually, the stuff is like this, that if TX is working, it essentially means that the entire signal path is through, that the 12 megahertz of, you know, filter is working, the modulator is working. I mean, everything is supposed to be working if you can get the TX out. So she first actually tests the TX, and then she does the RX part of it. But I mean, you know, we've figured out that, for instance, at times you swap the connectors around because there are too many of 2-pin connectors and too many of 3-pin connectors, which, you know, results in at times some confusion. So we have a whole drill of, you know, what goes in where and how to do it. I mean, you know, I don't know if you could see this, but on this paper you can see that there is something which goes that way, right? So it, you know, how do you put these parts in, and then, you know, what do you test, etc. This is actually her own notes here.
Do the women, they actually wind the tri-filler coils, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be a tough job. That looks tough to me.
Yeah, that's actually the toughest part. Actually, that's in the toughest part. The toughest one was to do the VFO coil while we were doing the analog BITX 40s, because there were 50 turns to come into a very small former, and that's a lot of wire to pull out. I mean, you know, it's almost about 2 feet of wire. So each time you put something into the hole, then you pull it out. It's about 2 feet, and then you again push it back in, and 50 turns have to go into that smaller space. So that was actually the killer thing.
Yeah.
With the tri-filler, and, you know, I've been telling people on the BITX list as well, what was happening earlier was that the 3 wires actually dipped in a solder pot to tin them, and at times the solder would actually go over those 2 wires. So that would create shorts in the transformers. But what we did to alleviate that problem is that now we have small plastic, you know, they're like mounting stuff. So within the things are already spread out. Then I actually wrote and built an Arduino transformer tester, which figures out whether, you know, the polarities have gone in right. You know, that is
Yep.
1 to 6 and 2 to 4 and 3
Right.
to 5, etc. So we have a small Arduino stuff into which you plug in the trifilar transformer and then that tests it. But all this has been sort of falling in place over some
Well,
time
that's great quality control you have there on that coil, especially now. I pulled that coil out on one of the units I got from you. One of them I got from you, it didn't have the little plastic base; it was just
Right,
soldered
yeah.
in. And the second one I got, it had the little plastic base, but I pulled that out. And it's not an easy job to pull out once it's soldered in. But a solder sucker
Yeah.
and a soldering iron, I got it out because I was having some difficulty. And a lot of people have some difficulty. And the nice thing about this radio is you troubleshoot it and you learn how it works. And you've got some very simple procedures on how the signal flows, and you've got some videos on YouTube that show how to test it. But I was thinking, okay, maybe the tri-filler is out of phase or something. I was and I took my meter, I pulled it out of the board because you can't check it easily in the board. So I pulled it out and I figured out the pinouts, 1 and 6 and 2 and 4 and so forth. And I tested each one with the meter, for continuity, and I said, oh man, everything's right. So I put it back in.
Well, this is always a problem, that you imagine that, there's a problem somewhere and you pull the entire thing out. I do it all the time, then you realize that the problem was somewhere else. But, it's like a hunt, right? That the fox is there and you say, okay, I'm going to crack it this time. I've got my bearings from these two places. I'm so certain about it, but it never turns out that way. But, this is the part of the hunt for the elusive bug in the circuit. It's fun at times, but it can become pretty frustrating at other times.
I'm going to put a picture up. This is a picture of your micro-BITX. This is it open. It looks like you've just got it kind of breadboarded on some copper-clad board. Have you designed yet a surface mount board for the micro-BITX?
This was the original, that I designed it as. This is from my the scratch build PCBs, draft. But I actually have something now I can show you, which is the micro BITX on the assembly.
Cool. And I like the way your display mounts on it. I like that.
So it's not fully assembled yet.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Walter was telling me I need to put that back. Let me see that. Let me get you back on here. Show that again. Show it because people weren't seeing it. There we go.
Yeah.
I love the way your display mounts on that. That's the new micro BITX right there.
Yeah. So what I've done here is I got really sick of the number of different connectors that were there. So now this actually has very few connectors. One is that this digital board, which also has a lot of digital lines coming in, just plugs into this here like that, right? And it's the same radio no board that we've been using earlier, right? So that plugs in there that way. And there is a single connector here, which takes the mic, the volume control, and the speaker out of a single connector here. Then we have a power connector here, which takes the 12 volts and a separate line for the for the power transistors. And then on this side is the antenna connector. So there are just 3 connectors to put in here, but it's slightly bigger than the BITX. Let me just show you the two in comparison. So you see it's slightly bigger. It's slightly bigger.
But it's 5 times more radio.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the one. The receivers already jumped to life. I'm just optimizing some stuff on the transmit side. I have a bit of a bad luck with the 7 megahertz low pass filter. So I'm just running some more simulations to get the values of that right. But otherwise,
we've had a few comments. There's a few people that said this is too complicated for me to build. I don't think they understand how simple you have made this. All the parts, all the surface mount parts, the capacitors, the diodes, the coils, already wound. Everything's mounted in surface mount technology. And even on the BITX 40, basically you had a very simple diagram, and you just hook up. You take the tuning pot. You solder 3 wires on it, and it plugs into the board. That's all you have to do. And it looks like you've even made it much simpler with the micro BITX, because now your display in VFO is mounted on the board. You've eliminated all those wires.
Yeah, so it's much simpler to put together, and really my attempt, I mean, this is not the highest performance rig you can get, because it's a dual conversion, and you know, the filtering comes in pretty late into the signal chain. But all said and done, I basically wanted to beat my own FT817ND. I mean, I love the rig, but you know, I wanted a homebrew rig which had performance better than the FT817. This doesn't do VHF and UHF, but otherwise, you know, receiver-wise, being able to handle signals, etc. This is a, you know, I've measured this rig very extensively.
This is so exciting. You got me smiling here,
Yeah.
Farhan. I got to get me one. So I don't know if you're taking orders, or if people want
No,
are
not yet.
already in the chat.
I think it'll be at least a month or two before we can, you know, start doing that, because there's some revision here. You know, in fact, I can show you the stuff. You see here, I don't know if you could see it, but I have actually cut the PCB and mounted a resistor. There are some value changes, you know, especially when it comes to spectral purity, etc. You know, it might take me another week or two to get this completely, you know, debugged.
Do you think you'll be offering it, say, within 1 month?
Maybe a little more, maybe about 2 months, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Do you have an idea on the cost break, the cost you might think
you know,
you'll charge for it?
the surprising thing is this, that if you look at the number of resistors, capacitors and everything, the component cost is not much, I mean, the component count is not really much different from what you would see for the BITX.
Yeah.
BITX has got 3 amplifiers on the chain, you know. There is a RF amplifier, post-mixer amplifier, and IF amplifier, right? This actually has only 2 amplifiers. It doesn't even have 3 amplifiers, right? There is only an extra, because there's an extra conversion, there's an extra filter at 45 megahertz. And on the PA, we have now upped the PA with 2 transistors, and there are 2 low-pass filters, and there's 1 extra relay. So actually, if you look at the components are not, you know, so I would imagine that it would be in the range of same thing as the BITX 40, but you know, I'm not sure right now, because until we freeze the design, I get everything else going. You know, one of the big problems that we face with this is that there are too many different types of coils which have to be put in the exact position. So if we are unable to get that process sorted out, there's going to be a lot of heartache. I mean, we have to, the low pass filter itself has different values for the 3 different inductors in the low pass filter, because it's an elliptical filter. It's not a, you know, Butterworth filter. So sorting out those production hassles is going to, you know, take a little while. Once that's actually done, then we'll be able to roll this out.
All right, well, write my name down right now on your piece of paper. I want to be number 1.
Yeah, we'll get that out, you know, pretty soon.
I mean, I'm really excited about it. It sounds to me like the price is going to come in less than what I thought it was going to be. And you're right. Probably the number of parts are very similar to the parts that you put on your BITX 40.
You know, I mean, parts are not, you know, I mean, some of us, including me, we count it in the, you know, in terms of number of transistors in a design, but you know, that's pretty, you know, dated. So for example, each IF amplifier has 3 transistors as opposed to 1 transistor. That's, you know, Wes Hayward's brilliant design. But you must imagine that the cost of the transistor is about the same as the cost of a resistor. So, you know, let's not count it that way. But if you count the number of blocks of, you know, circuits in the BITX and the micro BITX, they are almost the same. You know, they are not very different. So if someone wants to scratch build it, this is about as simple as scratch building a regular, you know, the old BITX. It's not really more complicated.
I am so surprised at how simple you made it, and how outstanding this radio works. It's amazing the job you've done with that. So what about JT65? You think you'd work on there pretty good?
I have never really worked. I mean, my preferred digital mode is CW, and this rig actually shows that. I've put some effort into getting CW on, and I have actually used the new micro BITX very little on SSB. I've mostly been operating it on CW. It's a fabulous rig there. But I've copied a lot of GT65. I've copied a lot of PSK31. So it's doing pretty well. There's just one thing which I do want to add into the firmware itself, which is to be able to lock onto a frequency, because oftentimes I have to fiddle around with the modes of from, let's say, LSB to USB, etc., and in which case I have to punch the function button and move the knob around. So when I come back, the frequency is off by a couple of hertz. So I want that to be fixed in the firmware. Then actually it will become extremely useful for all these digital modes.
Yeah, I tell you, but that's the nice thing about it being hackable. There's going to be a lot of people experimenting, and a lot of people are going to be putting JT65 on it in digital modes, and you've already put CW in it. And now this is a 20 watt radio. I noticed on the pictures there, looks like it has two finals possibly in a heat sink.
Yeah, it's push pull, and the reason for putting push pull is actually to cut down the number of low pass filters. I mean, if you open any HF rig, multi-band rig, the greatest amount of real estate is taken up by a whole bank of low pass filters. So that's actually the most complicated part of a multi-band rig. One is the band pass filters, which are usually required on the receiver front end, and the other is the low pass filter. So there's just two low pass filters at this, and to get to that, you had to at least eliminate the even harmonics, and they are actually eliminated when you use a push-pull amplifier. The push-pull amplifier virtually has no even harmonics. So we are able to use the same low-pass filter for 3.5 and 7 megahertz,
yeah.
Which is why we actually started putting in the two IRF 510s. Then I realized with the two IRF 510s, you can take 20 watts in and give 10 watts out. So it's, the power is about double that of the BITX 40 and the BITX 20s. That's just a fringe benefit really of this one.
So Doug in the chat room is asking, have you ever thought about making a more very high performance radio for more money?
Well, actually higher performance radio is less about money, but more about how much building effort you're going to put into it, right? So for example, there is this rig of mine, not many people have built it, called the Minima. So if you can, add a band pass filter for every HF band, the Minima is actually a fairly high performance radio. It's a very high performance radio. With Linrad as the back end, which is how I was using it, it would run circles around, most of the expensive high performance rigs, because it's narrow band, there's absolutely no amplifications until the crystal filter. It's got very low phase noise because it uses an SI 570 as a local oscillator. So that's there, and I oftentimes think, and I'm really considering making a completely analog, very high performance rig. If you look at Sherwood's pages on the Drakes, that rig still is the best contesting rig ever manufactured with those small hacks which are there in place. So I think it'll have to be an analog rig if it's a high performance rig.
So another question, very quickly, yeah. Does a micro BITX, is it general coverage receive, or is it handband only?
Oh, it's complete general coverage receive. In fact, you could go down to almost DC with this rig.
So do you have safeguards put in there where it won't transmit out of the handband, or will it transmit out of the handband?
Actually, right now, if you look at the firmware, it does, because I needed this rig also as a base unit for a transverter, which I'm working on for UHF and VHF. So I'm unable to buy crystals which will exactly put the down conversion onto 28 megahertz or any of the regular ham bands. So I've actually right now kept it open, but I know that in the firmware we need to go and make those changes. For instance, even within ham bands, for instance 10 megahertz, it doesn't have a filter to take the harmonics out on 10 megahertz. So we have to inhibit the transmit on that. But on the other hand, someone might say, I'm just using this as a, as an exciter, and I have a external power amplifier on which I have, a good filtering system there, or I'm using external harmonic filters on 10 megahertz. So why are you inhibiting it? But these are all software stuff. We'll be able to fix these as we go along. The whole thing about both the BITX designs is that they are open in the sense that they are open even about what they don't do, and there's always room for people contributing to it. So this is a design which will evolve very rapidly over the next couple of weeks and months. There's a lot of inputs coming from a lot of people, suggestions, etc. But I'm really looking forward to somebody scratch building it. A couple of people scratch build it and say this works or that doesn't work, etc. And that's about the time that this design is going to mature really.
Well, and that's the nice thing about this radio. There's so many people that are going to make so many modifications, and everybody's going to share this information. Farhan, I've got a picture here. I don't think you're seeing the video, or you're not seeing the video.
I'm seeing the video, but the video is, sort of about 30-40 seconds, delayed.
Okay, so you're watching it on the webcast and not on Skype. You should be getting it on.
Yeah.
You should be getting it on Skype.
No, on Skype I'm just getting a blank page. So
okay.
It's just a gray blank.
Well, I was saying everybody experiments with this and comes up with things, and I don't know. In just a minute, you'll see this come up on the webcast. Okay. I've got a schematic up here, and this is a ham KE0OG, and he's on YouTube. If anybody would like to look him up. Now, the way you've got demonstrated your tuning, when you turn the tuning dial all the way to one end, it would automatically start stepping and going up 10 kilohertz.
Right.
But to some people, they don't like that. So it's simple to fix. Now, I don't know if you've thought about this, but I think when you look at this, you will see this is a very simple mod. And are you getting the picture yet?
No. Okay. Yeah, I am. Right. I've seen this.
You've seen
this
before.
It's a really cute hack. It's a really cute hack, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really neat hack. He added a 47 ohm resistor at the top and a 320 at the bottom, and put a push button across it.
Push button.
And the nice thing about this is so simple, but it's so interesting. When you turn that pot all the way to one end to the other, your Arduino doesn't start automatically counting because it doesn't think it's at the end. And you can press the up or down button there, and you can step it. So, I mean, this may be something you want to implement in some of your radios at some point, or anybody can do it.
Absolutely. In fact, in the Arduino sketch which we did for the Micro BITX, the stepping towards the end is 1 kilohertz and not 10 kilohertz. So you can actually listen to the signals going past, and at any point in time you can interrupt it and tune that signal in properly. But yeah, I mean, this is just about this tuning mechanism that we used here, which is that there's no encoder. Now what happens is the encoders that you can buy for a few dollars do not have an ability to do more than 100 distinct tuning points per rotation, which is really very kludgy. I just wanted something smoother, and actually if you look at the Arduino, it is a 10-bit A to D converter, which essentially means it gives you 1,000 points in the entire 270-degree turn, so you can actually fine-tune the signal more. So it's just my own personal preference for sort of a semi-analog tuning rather than a tuning which is very which just keeps going like broader steps. But there are a lot of people who actually prefer using a rotary encoder still, and I think that going forward the sketch will have both these tuning mechanisms, so you can comment one out and use the other. It's just that I have been personally unable to get hold of a good quality tuning encoder from the local market that I can actually push into this and use that.
Okay, cool, man. All right, well, hey, we're very excited about it. It's almost 9:30 here. I don't know what time it is for you. It's probably What time is there? 8:30 in the morning?
It's exactly 8 o'clock now. Yeah.
That's right. You're on a half-hour time zone, so boy, the time is really messed up for you.
That's perfectly fine. I'm up about this time.
So, let me think. When I use universal time and you're on a half hour, I guess it's the same for you, or does that mess things up?
Yeah. It's about 5.5 hours up. So it's
Oh, that's right. That's right. It's yeah. That's right. It's the same universal time. It's just your local time is different. It may be 2:30. It may be 2:30 universal time, but it may be 1 o'clock. No, it may be 8 o'clock local time. Wow.
Yeah.
Whew. All right. Well, hey, let me give your websites out here. People are interested in this. This is hfsigs.com. Is where you can order the radios, and it shows you all the construction you have to do and all the wiring, and it gives you the theory. It's very well laid out. And you've got your other site called www.phonestack.com/Farhan. That's PhoneStack, PhoneStack, phonestack.com/Farhan. I think it's up on there too. Well, okay, I thought you were. Walter's putting it in the chat room. So
Okay.
They can look there, and on your phonestack.com, you actually talk about test equipment and other things that you build.
Yeah, well, PhoneStack essentially started out as my personal page on our company's web server, but the company no longer exists. So, when they were closing down the company, I asked them to, hand over the domain name to me so that I could continue the same URL, because a lot of people have, deep linked this into their own websites and, old mailing lists, etc. So we just continue using that.
Hey, here's a comment in the chat room. I thought this is kind of neat. It said, Doug says, Farhan, you could make an IC 7610 for about $199. I don't know.
Sorry?
He said you could make an IC 7610 for about $199.
It would make me ill to make something as complicated as that. I mean, the thing is this, that the radios that especially I build are primitive in a lot of ways.
Let me
Farhan,
make one announcement here. We're on shortwave radio station WBCQ on 5130 kilohertz up in Monticello, Maine, and I just got a note from our main man up there, Robert. We call him Lord Robert, and he's normally we stop the radio station at this time every night, but he must think it's so interesting. He's going to keep the radio station on up there for the rest of the show.
All right.
So
that's very kind of him.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. So your discussion, I think, of this radio is just really interesting. I hope there's a lot of shortwave people that are interested in this. And many of us got started being shortwave listeners in our young days.
Right.
I don't know if you did you do shortwave before you?
Oh yeah. In fact, let me show you something, if I can here. I'm not sure what all you'll be able to see. This is the radio that I grew up on. Let me just show you this. So I don't know if you can see that radio. Can you see this one?
I can see it. Yes.
Yeah. So that's A Farhan. So that's. This is that's a sticker of Phantom. I don't know if you remember that. So as a kid, this is the radio that I used to do all my SWLing on.
Okay.
And I actually worked DX with this. So if you see this 41, which was on K2, now this is actually a German radio. So you press this and you get to 41, and that's where the action was at 7 megahertz, and that would be my favorite frequency. Did you actually
make contact with that radio?
Oh, of course. So essentially, I had a small VFO which I would, actually put on top of this radio, and beat the the 7 megahertz VFO down to the signal with a slug, and that would actually work this. And these are my
Farhan, I did something very similar back in. Your audio is starting to break a little bit.
There is some DC3 rates, which is still more power. Those are my boat anchors, yeah.
I did something very similar when I was first got my ham license 50-something years ago. My first contact, I had a little 9-transistor AM shortwave receiver in the 80-meter band. The 80-meter band was 1/2 inch long, and it didn't have a BFO. It did not have a BFO.
Wow!
And I had a signal generator that I put near the frequency and just beat it against it. And I was lucky enough to find someone nearby that heard my CQ, and I made my first contact on that.
Wow!
And after that, I saw it was such a crummy radio that I had to get me a real ham radio.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean that's really where radio is at, which is that, and I mean, one could always make contacts with, I mean, for example, right now, the Skype is probably using $1 trillion infrastructure between you and I in terms of the undersea cables, the number of routers, and the right of the way, etc. Which people have paid for to build this digital pipe between you and I. But on the other hand, if you look at 2 BITXs of about 20 transistors each, sitting on 2 sides of the world and working, having a similar emotional and intellectual connect with another person. That's really the magic of radio. I mean, it's being sovereign in your ability to be able to communicate with another human being across the world.
Well, talk to us just for a minute about the BITX 40 or the micro BITX. Now, it's a single sideband receiver.
Right.
And single sideband RCW receiver, but does it do pretty good on AM also? I know you said it's general coverage.
Unfortunately, no on AM. So these are the hacks that I really want someone to take on and build. The reason is that the skirts of the crystal filter are not good enough for AM. I mean, you couldn't make it good for both. So if you could have a bank of crystal filters, I mean, it's always good to, for example, on CW, talk about putting an audio filter, but there's nothing which actually beats a good crystal filter, which is narrowband for CW and PSK3 and the JT65s, etc. The digital modes, and a much broader one for AM and narrowband FM, because even when we listen to AM, it's a pity that shortwave AM is sort of dying, and the other day I heard that Radio Australia is also closing down the shortwave AM broadcasts.
Well, there's a lot of
controversy.
A lot of controversy about Australia shortwave. I heard they might start it back up.
I certainly do hope so. I mean, we grew up on Radio Dosheville and BBC. In fact, in India, there is an idiom which calls somebody who can't hold a secret with them as BBC. He says that person is BBC, essentially meaning let the secret out. So we always went out in a lot of the countries where there's a lot of censorship. We always looked forward to shortwave radios providing the real news. That's always been also a political tool, but for whatever reasons, the international community should realize of the governments that shortwaves are an extremely important part of people engaging with each other, especially these AM transmissions. So anyway, but we require those separate crystal filters. Ideally speaking, 3 filters: one for AM, FM, one for SSB, and one for CW, which can be switched. Arduino can do that job very well. And,
so that would be a simple hack, basically. Just switch the filter. Yeah. Hey, Farhan, are you going to be in Dayton this year? People are wanting to know if you're going to be there.
I would love to be in Dayton. I'm seriously considering it. In fact, I've sent my passports to the travel agent to, start processing the visa and all that. But I'm not too sure how long it will take for me to process that. But I have, I'm set on coming to Dayton. I hope to be able to make it. But even now, I haven't booked my tickets yet. So, that's where it is at. I hope visa wouldn't be too much of an issue, but let's see.
Well, okay, we'll write down our booth number, 5006. 5006.
Okay.
So when you get there, come by and visit with us.
Of course.
We'll have some
Yeah.
drinks for you there, maybe some snacks. You can sit down and rest your feet because, as you know, it's a big place to walk around.
I've heard so.
Yeah.
I'm really excited, with this plan of coming down to Dayton.
Well,
More than anything else, the people that I'd like to catch up at Dayton and FDIM, and then I want to travel to the West Coast, and I mean one of the key reasons why I would want to come to the US is actually to spend an hour or two with Wes Hayward. So that's actually the main driver for me to plan this trip out.
Well, hey, I want to tell you something. We're really happy that we had you on here tonight.
Yeah.
You're world famous with these radios and all the other things you've done. And I saw some quotes on the internet where you were a master in home brewing ham radio equipment and test equipment, especially on a budget. And people need to just visit your website and look at some of the test equipment that you've got out there. And, hey, I want to have you on here again soon. When you start getting ready to ship those boards, let's get you back on again and talk a lot more detail about the micro BITX. I don't know why I call it BITX. I think
that's fine.
I think there was another radio.
Whatever you need to.
Wasn't there another radio out there called the BITX 40?
Yeah. Well, I mean, people keep calling it everything. This is absolutely fine. I mean, by the way, there's no trademark over, BITX or bits or whatever. There's absolutely no copyright on these designs, except that, I mean, I want them to just pass on the free nature of these circuits. So it's not that, these are restricted circuits in any way. So, right from calling it something or not calling it BITX either and calling it something else. For example, in Indonesia, there is a derived design which is very popular called BITXen, BIXEN, BIXEN, which is essentially the BITX with a DDS with an AD9833, I think,
yeah.
which is used to control that.
So what did the BITX stand for?
Well, it was actually supposed to be a bidirectional transceiver.
Okay, I got you.
That was the original intent.
All right, very good. All right, well, Farhan, thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and we're going to end this.
Yeah.
I know we're running a little late here, but
Okay.
man, we've really enjoyed it. The people in the chat room have
Yep.
really, really enjoyed listening to you there, and they want you back again. And well, I'd love to have you on here as often as you want to come on. It's a great story.
That would be a pleasure, Tom.
We can talk
It's
about all
absolutely
kinds of things, shortwave.
Pleasure
and-
to connect with everybody there and 73 and keep the soda smoke going and drifting in your shacks. See you all down the log.
All right. Well,
So-
hey, thank you very much. And 73, we'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay. And like, your shirt is glowing
doing
again.
it again.
It's glowing again. Look at that. I got Walter. Walter joined me again tonight. This is my neighbor. Yeah, he don't get it about the shirts. Last week, boy, he wore a green shirt
You
and
said anything but green.
I,
I was at a baseball game today and just came straight down here.
oh man. Well,
I'm gonna have to call you and coordinate.
there's a show I watch it on the old TV channel. The Invisible Man is a British TV show. You ever seen that, The Invisible Man, where he solves crimes and stuff, and so people can see him when he meets the people. He takes this white gauze, he wraps his head, and he wears sunglasses, and he wears a suit, and he puts gloves on. That way you know where he is. But when he takes that off, nobody can see him. It's the Invisible Man, and you're kind of like the Invisible Man tonight. We're seeing through you. All right. So, hey, that's kind of the show tonight. We're running late. I know Walter's going to peel out of here in a few minutes. Walter is my pilot friend from my company that I retired from a few years ago, FedEx, and Walter flies the big wide bodies and don't know how he keeps them in the air.
Some days I wonder.
Oh, man. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and bring Hangout up and put it on the air here, and you guys talk on Hangout. I may or may not be in here for a minute. I'm going to visit with Walter here just a second. If Walter has a few minutes, wants to stay or say hi, he can. But let me get Hangout up. And oh, hey, my Microsoft support center didn't call tonight. I wish I knew the manager of that department, because they were rude to me today. After 30 minutes, they hung up on me.
Oh, no.
And I'd like to just report that guy. All right, let me bring Hangout up. Let's see if we can get this thing going here. Thanks for everybody for watching tonight. Join us on Facebook. Click on that link at the top of the page. And would love to have you there. Let's see. It'd be cool if all the stuff was automated, you know. All right, so I see us on there. Let's see. We've got Jim, and we've got there we go. There's Old Faithful. We got Jeffrey in there. Hey, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, can you hear us?
I don't have any volume.
Yeah, you don't have any volume. All right, so we got. Can you hear me, Jeffrey? Jeffrey.
Can't hear a word.
Hello. You not be in here for a minute. I'm gonna. Here we go. I had to talk to him in sign language here. All right, well, Jeffrey, you're gonna have to fix that. Hey, we got Bill in there. We got Bill out there in I don't know. I forget where William is. Wyoming? Is it Wyoming? Montana? You remember
Montana?
Oh man, yeah, all those Wyoming, Montana. They all look the same to me, man. You know, they're all
Montucky.
They're all the same to me. Let's see if I can adjust this picture. That's terrible looking here.
Where's the beanie and the heavyweight coat?
I got half my head in there.
Oh, let me see here. Let me check.
Can't hear you, Bill.
So we can see it, man. I mean, it's.
Don't know why I can't hear.
See if I don't
Close this on the red page now.
All right. Hey, I hear old William there is going to be our next door to us up in Dayton. They're going to be in space 5007 with.
Yes, sir. We're going to be right next door to you,
Linux,
just across the walkway there from the door.
Yeah, at least we got a door between us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a door there.
You can hear me, Bill, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, you guys go ahead and talk a minute. I'm going to turn my mic down, and I'm going to talk with Walter here a minute, and I don't know if he's got to run or not. But, you know, when he flies those big planes, they require him to have at least, 30 minutes of sleep per night when you fly that plane? Per month, okay. All right, I'll be back with you guys in a minute, but you're on the air right now.
Woo!
Yeah, I think Tom needs a potty break. That's what that's all about. It's been out there for, it's almost at least 2 hours.
It's time for a sandwich for him. Get him a peanut butter sandwich.
Yeah, sandwich.
Oh, Lord.
We gotta get more people into the after show here. Right?
Yeah, every once in a while it's busy, but sometimes it's a little walkway there from the door.
Yeah, at least we got a door between us. Yeah, we got a door there.
You can hear me, Bill, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, you guys go ahead and talk a minute. I'm going to turn my mic down.
You're going to mute the show over there.
Walter here a minute. I don't know if he's got to run or not, but, you know.
Oh, he dropped out. Hey there, Bill.
Hey, Bill. You're Bill 1. I'm Bill 2.
Okay. I was here first, so this time I'm Bill 1.
No, it's a new month.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah, we're in the, we're almost the end of it now. Jeez.
You guys switching out Bill 1, Bill 2, depending on the month?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
only
to
fair.
confuse Tom, that's what it is for. Because, yeah, we look like twin brothers, too, so it's kind of hard to tell us apart.
To confuse Tom.
Yeah, I work with another Jim, and there's a couple of things that we're peers. We're interchangeable for some of the functions we do at work. So people come up in meetings. Well, Jim, when you worked on that thing the other day, and I go, wrong Jim. Oh, yeah, okay.
Got no audio.
Oh, we can hear you, Jeff. Like, yeah.
And so, Jeffrey, where were you last weekend? Last week, were you
I don't have
under
audio.
a pile of snow?
I don't think you can hear us right now.
Oh,
It'll be sign language or something.
Too many switches over there.
yeah, we had a lot of snow last week. In fact, I was at the Emergency Operations Center, and that was a interesting evolution there with the Blizzard Stella.
Snowpocalypse or something?
Oh yeah, 12 to 18. We got about 10 and a half. So I mean, that's,
Yeah.
what-
I am trying to get a conference node set up in
Hello? Hello? No.
silly little Echo Link. And it's not working. I think it might be that I'm missing something.
wonder if
What's going on?
92, 1, okay, there's that.
So I got to finish. I got to double check my All-Star node and make sure Echo Link still works on it. I haven't crashed that one yet.
Yeah. Trying to get one set up for National Jamboree, so we have a spare. And
Hi, Mike.
Hello, fellas.
It's Mike.
so I'm just going through the paces, setting one up. But I think I have a network problem, so that's probably why it's not working.
Hello?
He's waving at us. Hi,
Yeah.
Jeffrey.
Did you get it working? Jeffy.
Am I being able to heard tonight?
What's that?
Oh, he said, "What's that?" So it means I'm being heard tonight.
Oh, yeah, I
yeah.
can hear you.
Okay, some nights I gotta go out and reboot again.
Oh, you're using your iPad.
What?
I thought you were still using an iPad or something.
No.
No? Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, Jeff may have to try turning it off and back on again.
I think he's already gone through that, but I'm sure he'll figure it out. He's
It's a
got all
little
his
volume
computers
control.
down.
Raise the slider.
Well, you see how many computers he's got there.
Oh, wait a minute. Are we gonna have a computer wars?
Yeah.
Let's see. There's two work computers and 4 monitors to my left. There's 3 monitors on this machine. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 laptops and a MacBook on the behind the shack here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 machines in the rack.
No, number.
When you do computers for a living, you got to have a couple of them.
Oh, at least 2.
Yeah.
There you go. I was hoping.
Hey, Bill, did you finally get shoveled out?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I was
Oh, the other
hoping-
bit.
I was
Oh, let me
hoping
tell you.
that, Microsoft Support Center called me back during the show tonight, but they didn't do it.
oh, well, you're lucky on that.
Oh man,
Okay.
tell you, Farhan is a really smart guy. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's cool. I'm first on his list for the radio. I may just get it just to put it together and not ever use it. So, hey, Lord Robert, thanks for keeping us on, Lord Robert, at WBCQ, Monticello, Maine, United States of America. Thanks for having us on Shortwave tonight. We'll see you
I
next
can't get
Tuesday.
audio. Hey, Tom.
Yep.
I gotta go to bed anyway. Good night, everyone.
Okay, good night.
Now we
Thank
hear
you.
you.
Bye.
Don't go!
Poor Jeffrey.
Oh, he went.
Connect. Time's out.
All right.
Great.
Yeah. So.
Oh, we gotta get this, some other things here going. We've gotta get some other things going here. Now,
All right. I think Mark possibly has
one
the audio
wire
on.
has to come. We had a long show tonight. We're gonna get this, some other things here going.
Yeah, Mark, mute the audio. Mute the audio on the show.
That's
So I missed the first part of the show. You were talking, it's, California. I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I can watch it on the, I come into your latter part, so that had to do with, making the laws about talking on the radio and driving.
Yeah, our hands-free law's got some big holes in it that that could provide citations for talking on your two-way. That's got to get fixed.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know. Here, in Michigan, you can't have a scanner in your car, but a ham radio operator we can. And I always make sure I got a copy of the Michigan compiled laws, stuck in with my registration and insurance papers to show that a licensed ham radio operator can have one. Because of our radios that we're picking up, the police also on our 2-meter rigs and that stuff. So.
Yeah, well, that's about what we're going to have to start doing here, because this law won't get changed till the end of the year, and we're waiting for Highway Patrol to issue an official interpretation, an enforcement memo.
Yeah, see, and I was always able to have a scanner or not, because I am retired law enforcement, 25 years road patrol officer, besides being a ham radio operator, so I was able to have it either way. And I have seen other hams from other departments in the county have the radio, written up, the radio taken, and then the next day the prosecutor says, you got to give the guy his radio back. But some of the officers on the road all they see is, it's receiving police, it's a scanner, you can't have a scanner in your car, receiving police, and they pull it no matter what the ham said. So
they'd have a hard time getting my 6 rigs out of my car.
Yeah.
Truck. Yeah, they'd be there all day.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things about this is that if CHP issues a memo, there's no telling that Barney Fife and Upper Shasta County is going to get the memo.
Right.
Attention to it. So you're stuck out there. They won't confiscate your gear. You're just going to get the ticket. But then if you want to fight it in court, then you've got to drive all the way back. It's a 6-7 hour drive up to Shasta County or down to Inyo County to go to court and fight it. And they know this. And when you got 11 antennas on your truck, you're very easily profiled.
They can see you coming.
oh, we have to do this.
Oh yeah, I'm a rolling tourist trap. My wife gets a kick out of whether or not we have the Airstream behind us, if we're out in the front, we got all these guys coming by, the passengers sitting there, you can see them with their fingers going,
Yeah.
and my wife says, just get a bumper sticker that says, there are 11. Yes, 11 antennas. It's just get it over with.
I just got my one dual band antenna on each vehicle. That's enough for me. I've never been interested in putting HF in the vehicle, so I'm not on the road enough. Yeah.
Well, and we intend to do a bunch of Airstreaming, and I've got a great Airstream story.
Wash out.
When I went to our latest Airstream, we got out of Billings, Montana, and I got on the road. I was talking to my local buddies on the UHF,
Montana.
and
Well, we might have that decent there.
they said, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to Montana to pick up this Airstream. And they said, you got your APRS on? I said, yeah, I do. And they said, you got your HF rig? Yeah, I do. I said, okay. So for a 5-day road trip up and back, I had OnStar by ham radio because the guys I was talking to had been on that same route. So, they tracked me on APRS, and they said, in about a mile and a half, pull over and stop at Kathy's Coffee Shop in Elko or something. It was fascinating. It was a really good thing. They made a hotel reservation for me on the way up and told me where to stop for coffee.
I don't have a problem with.
Mark, we hear you talking, man.
Yeah, don't say anything you don't want us to know, Mark. Maybe you can't hear us.
There. I straightened it up. I had the W5 feed still going. I got rid of it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I gotta get rid of Tom. Get rid of him and you'll do fine.
Oh, if we got rid of him, we wouldn't be here. It just takes a minute to get all these things straightened up. Well, just like Tom, he had what, 4 or 5 mice there in front of him. He had control of the different computers.
Got a few here.
I'm trying to convince him to put another Heil up there and cross phase it so he can move around and not fall out of the mic pattern.
Yeah, you don't need a fancy mic. I got a $10 lapel, whatever they call it there. The stand is broken. It's just hanging over the edge of the top of my screen. That's all I use. Nothing fancy. It works.
All right, here we go.
That's
There's some
it.
PR35s out there.
I'll take one.
Wow.
How about that right there? Let's see. We'll now this is not stereo. This is trio.
There I go.
Trio.
A broken mic.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can tell it's an electric mic. Yes.
This is trio.
It just hangs over the front of my screen. Right up there. Next to the camera.
So Tom, when you go to Dayton, you run into Bobby Heil. Tell him that his PR35 didn't show up very well in the show, and I need a 40 up for the next one. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was with Bob here a while back. I had Bob on the show, and boy, he's talking in my mic here, and talking to everybody, and then he wants to show us the new mic he's got, so he unplugs the XLR from my mic here, and he puts my mic in his back pocket, and he plugs his mic in. Well, and he starts talking about his new mic, and then when he gets through talking, he unplugs his mic and he starts walking off with my Heil mic in his back pocket.
Wait a minute. Time to get out the engraver, RFID tag or something.
Yeah.
I love this 35. I handed it to a live vocalist I've hung out with, and I snuck up on stage and yanked his Shure SM58 off the stand and put this up there, and he said, oh, I'm taking this home. I go, no, you're not. Everybody else can enjoy the concert for now, but that's mine. Go buy your own. Love this stuff.
It's a waste to use this Pro mic, this PR35 on a ham radio, because you only got 2 kilohertz wide bandwidth basically on your audio anyway. I mean, this sucker.
Yeah, but it's the physical characteristics of its pattern and the sound pressure that it can take.
Yeah, this can go from like 10 cycles to
it's so much better than these electrets that are just omnidirectional and just
But it does.
you
It
spend
does
any
sound
time on
good.
a stage, you
does
figure
sound
this
good.
out quick.
Yeah. No doubt about it. And it's very, very directional. I mean, Dayton can be so noisy when you get in those big crowds that you can't even hear yourself talking to the person next to you. And we can use these mics, and you don't even hear that noise. You know, you talk
Right.
straight into this mic, and it cancels. And it just does a great job there. So,
You're breaking up, Tom.
am I? Well,
Yeah, I think you've exceeded available bandwidth. or something.
probably this high PR10 here is causing.
No, I don't think it's the mic. I think it's whatever's
Well, let's see,
digitizing
test
you.
one. Let's see. Test.
Packet loss.
Test. Well, I don't know. The internet looks okay. No messages. Yeah, who knows what it is?
Maybe my wife's streaming.
Oh, let's see. Let me get you guys back on here. I had me on here. They're complaining they're not seeing you now. There we go.
No, now we're straightened up. Better microphone.
I see Delta joined us. Delta's in the chat room. Want to say hello and thank you to Delta. Delta is the owner of Digital Addiction, and he's the one that does our chat room for us. And check out Digital Addiction if you'd like chat rooms. There's a number of other radio-related chat rooms that Delta has on Digital Addiction.
Well, yeah, it's getting late for me. My bedtime.
Well, let me see. It's getting late for me too.
Yeah,
I'll give you guys a different view. How you like that view right there?
Oh, let's see.
That's good.
There you go, Tom.
Yeah, it's very techy. Now we got all the gadgets and you can see your toys.
Yeah.
Well,
RTP data.
oh,
Well, guys, it's after 10 o'clock here. I think I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here.
yep, 11:07, 10:07 there.
It always feels good on Tuesday getting the show over with. And I don't start worrying again until about Friday. And then I go, what in the world am I going to have on next Tuesday?
Yeah, we can make something up.
So, yeah, I mean, I occasionally, well, I don't know. I've usually not had to make something up. Usually something falls in place, you know.
Well, I need to start writing chapters of my HF mobile earring book to backfill what Don Johnson started. So you know, maybe we can write chapters on the air or something. Question and answers.
All right.
All right, Tom. Well, you have a good week. We'll catch you later.
Get out of here. I mean, hey, you know, we got, maybe we do a story on the, maybe we do a story here on our virtual presence machine, you know.
Oh, you got your robots.
Yeah. Hey, I could invite Doc into the show one night. You recognize
Is that Martin
Doc?
Jew?
Doc KQ or KQ?
No, that's Martin.
That's not Martin. That's theophysicist right there. You see him on the
What?
Discovery Channel, huh? Let's see.
No, ain't that great?
All right. I'll see you guys later. See you next weekend or next week.
Yeah, it's probably snooze time. I took the trash out, but I got to go catch up to my NCIS fix. So.
Yep. All right.
Hey, Jim, before you go, you know, you should catch up with Gordon West, WB0NOA, and get him to get the people down south there to start complaining and raising Cain, you know?
Well, the ARRL Southwest Division Vice Director has engaged, And here's the really weird part. Everybody everywhere has reached out to the ARRL reps and gone, what's happening with this? What are you going to do about this? There's this stuff going on. But nobody really kicked up until I started this petition. Nobody paid attention until I said, something's wrong here, and started this petition. So nobody in the ARRL has done anything about this or responded to us. And all of a sudden, like a submarine in a battleship, in a battle scene, the ARRL Southwest Division guy and their volunteer council showed up in Sacramento last Wednesday, and on Thursday announced, finally got back to us, oh yeah, we had a meeting with the assemblyman and all that kind of stuff, and this is what happened and all that. I'm going, wait a minute, we've been a month and a half at this, and you guys come up and get a meeting? How did that happen? Well, we figured out how that happened, but so we had a couple of email exchanges with him, and then asked some other questions. He said, "Well, excuse those prior responses. You're in another district. I'm not supposed to talk to you about this. You need to talk to your division director." It's like, wait a minute, what? They just walled us off and said, "No, I can't talk to you. You're in a different division."
Do you know? What is his name? Ron W6KJ. He's in on W6KJ. He's out there in. Oh God, I forget what area he's in. I'd have to look in my QST, but I know he's a director out there in Northern California.
Ron Murdoch in Yuba City. Yep, redneck country.
Is that close to you?
No, it's about 30, 40 miles outside of Sacramento. He's in what would be the state of Jefferson if they ever split that off. Yeah, he probably worked at Beale Air Force Base. I bet you that's why he's in Yuba City. I get it. I know what he did. Probably a pretty sharp guy.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
Well, get him on our petition, and we'll hook him up with Norm. He can go out and get some more petitions. But so all of a sudden, the ARRL went dark on us, and we sent a note off. Norm sent a note off to headquarters. And on Saturday or Sunday, Saturday he was at a Hamfest, got a bunch of signatures, and talked to a lot of folks. And one of the guys he talked to was the head engineer of the CBS affiliate in Sacramento, the TV station. And the guy said, "Oh darn, this means that all our ENG trucks can't use their two-way radio." So what happens is Norm gets a call on Sunday afternoon going, "There's a news truck on its way to your house. They want to interview you for a story." The Norm had to take a sheet. It's like me. He's retired. He hangs out at home. I work at home, so he's like, "Damn, I had to take a shower and put a shirt on." So he got this CBS news blast up there, and then Sunday, the ARRL CEO sends us a note back on, "Well, we're gonna discuss this in a meeting on Monday. We'll get back to you." It's now Tuesday evening. We got nothing from ARRL. So needless to say, we're a little concerned and perplexed that we've got the gravity, we got the media, we started this. There are probably more people that know about this because of what we started than anybody reading the ARRL, bulletin of the week. And it's like, you guys need us to get votes to make this happen. We don't care what the new language is as long as it's good. We don't care who gets the language fixed. But, you want to keep your friends engaged because we have to get voters to sign up for this. Imagine you're an assembly person. You just passed a new bill that's really great for community safety and all that. And 6 months later, you're bringing it back to the floor to fix it. You don't think that guy's going to need some voters' support to pass this? So it's like I don't understand why Newington and these guys are just you're not my guy. Look away. I can't talk. Thing of a greater good community situation than I can ever imagine. I just don't get it. Something's wrong with this. So,
And you say Chris? You talked to Chris Emily?
no, well, we were privy to Chris's memo and his opinion about what he thinks the law should be. He agrees certainly that the law is full of holes and it's very ambiguous. But his assertion was that
So you're saying I can ask this cat
exemption for
any
amateur
question?
radio.
The cat is
Well,
connected to the computer.
that's not the greater
Just
good.
type in the
You
question.
can't special interest this to death.
Display.
So, you know, he came off pretty strong, and you can imagine that a bunch of legislators up in Sacramento, in California, aren't really going to give a whole lot of heed to some smart-ass lawyer from
You're the
there.
man!
You know,
I've been
we
looking
don't
for
need
this
you
for
to come
weeks.
into California. We're smart people in California. We're trendsetters. We don't need some lawyer from Maryland to step into this. So I don't know if Sacramento ever saw Chris's note. Chris didn't interact with me, but I don't pay his bill. Headquarters pays his bill. So it's pretty bizarre. It's a very strange situation. I mean, here's a national organization that I looked up to as a kid as the be-all, end-all of knowledge for amateur radio, and now when the entire state needs them, you know, they just went submarine, and it's just I don't get it. And the other part of the issue is that we're two different divisions covering the state. There's no single point of contact to outreach to all the California hams. So, you know, whatever the Southwest region division does, they may or may not communicate with their people any better than the people in Northern California. So, it's just bizarre. It's totally bizarre. Somebody in Newington is there's something going on out there. I don't get it. But it affects you guys from Ohio or Florida or Texas or wherever you want to come to, you know, come from on vacation and bring your rig or, you know, bring your travel trailer or whatever. You know, how many people in North Dakota know that you can't use your ham radio when you come to visit California? Nobody. Well, that's not right.
No.
Surprise! Welcome to California. Here's a $120 ticket, and good luck fighting in court when you're back home from, you know, in Minot. You know, not going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there's something these guys are not even looking at. You look at these cars these days, there's so many buttons and things you can push, and you can't even read things because they're so small.
Well, I can't use the built-in nav system in my truck because it takes my eyes down about 30, 45 degrees, and the graphics on that stupid 5-inch display are so poor, I don't know where I am. So I put an Android, well, I've got a 5-inch Garmin I put on the dash so that I can actually read. And
that car, they got more buttons in them cars, you can't figure them out. Well, I have figured a little bit. They're starting to have a little bit of standardization in the symbols.
Yeah. Well, my stepdad just bought a new Audi SUV, and Kevin was telling me they took it on a trip down to Disney, which is about a 6-hour drive from here, and they got on the freeway, and he just pushed basically the autopilot button, told it how much of a safety margin he wanted in front of him, and set a speed, and, you know, the thing drove itself. You know, he could alter it with lane changes, and once in a while you have to touch the steering wheel so it knows there's an actual human there. But
I don't think I'm ready for that yet.
I think it'd be an amazing. I love. I mean, cruise control is great, and it doesn't work in my truck because I put an aftermarket widget on for video, so my the CAN bus data thing doesn't pick up my my cruise controls anymore. But it's got to be a bizarre experience. But you know, I'm thinking, my dad taught in his later years in the Wisconsin Air National Guard. He ended up working in base safety, and he taught. Back then, I forget what the agency was, but he taught defensive driving. So for whatever reason, I found myself taking 2 defensive driving courses when I was 14 before I ever got behind the wheel of a car. And now nobody needs to know how to drive. I'm thinking, you got a 4,000-pound bomb, you know.
Yeah.
Something highly effective. You were personally responsible for. You know, we learned to drive. You know, you learned to drive in the wintertime in a high school parking lot, sliding around doing skid controls on ice.
Those are called, in the winter, we call them donuts.
Donuts.
Yeah.
Well, the object was not to do donuts, and so if you could go into one and come out not having one, then you had control of your vehicle.
Yeah.
Great times.
We
but
do
not
those
today.
down here all the time.
No, today these kids don't even read a textbook in driver ed. It's 4 hours a night. I don't even know how they do the class. You know, I don't even know how they get any other time to do schoolwork. They're there 4 hours a night for 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh, here's an interesting way to talk on the radio when you're going full speed.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, have that picture when they stop you and say, "Here."
Is that the Kawasaki?
Yep. Yeah, that's you're trying to chase somebody, or you're going to a call and you're trying to talk the radio at the same time.
That would be dangerous. They ought to outlaw that.
Yeah, I talked to one of the CHP motor officers out here. They went from the Kawasaki's to the BMWs, and I can't remember which one they liked better, but now their new fleet's going to be Harleys.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. So that picture is about over 20 years old.
Yeah, really.
That KZ1000 was a hell of a bike, I understand. I'm not a biker because I just don't have the ears
I'll go ahead and kick you guys next week. I'm going to go ahead and
Good night, Mark.
All right, Mark.
Good night, Mark.
Yeah. Great talking to you guys, and yeah, I just wish they would try to figure out. They have to think about what they're trying to do with the roads. Well, one thing is I say, put the kids back in class for a lot longer than what they are, and have them shorter hours, more time in shorter hours, and I leave them think more. I remember when we did driver ed, you go look at the newspaper, look at the accidents. You either figure out what happened in the accident, or how could you have prevented the accident.
Oh yeah, yeah. When I took my class B license in Texas to drive fire truck, I actually practiced parallel parking the thing. Everybody said, "You don't have to do that." And I go, hydrant spotting. Yeah, I said I want to parallel park it. So
no, I had to do it. I drive transit bus right now, a 40-foot transit bus around the county here. And yeah, when I got my Class B and bus endorsements, I had to go through the cones and racking. So
that's kind of fun. Yeah, yeah. I took my test, and DPS guy said, "Well, so when's the parking test?" He says, "What do you mean? There's no parking test." I said, "But I can parallel park this thing. You want to see?" And he goes, "Nah, that's okay." I said, "Darn, but I got so good at it. I really wanted to show him." No, sir, you don't have to parallel park a 40-foot rig. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm fixing to shut down the station here. And I'm fixing to go get me a peanut butter. Get me a peanut butter here in a minute. Let me.
Semi, and they have to jackknife the rigs and get off the road.
Yeah. All right. Well, I gotta go catch up to my NCIS fix, and it'll be time to feed the puppies here pretty soon. So.
You got 3 of them in a row to do.
Well, NCIC has already been on here, so we can tell you what.
No, it's okay. I gotta check out Bishop and.